Yesterday, we looked at a townhome, 2220 Valley Edge Drive, 103. Today, I want to share with you why I prefer, in this area specifically, only for this area. Again, it's different by market, right? This is why I prefer townhomes and condos over single family homes. And so I'm the same zip code as yesterday, right? And I'm looking at all the single family homes here, and you barely, I think I tried to look for the lowest price single family home here, and this one at $325,000 at 10821. This was the lowest detached home, if you will, but it was still in a gated community, so there was still like a $19 HOA fee. Now, at this price, here's what it doesn't really make sense, right? So yesterday we looked at a home was maybe 235,000, and for us to cash flow yesterday, we really need to see that property closer to 165 grand, assuming you're getting 2050, right? So if I were to analyze this deal, right, there were a couple of things that would be different. Let's kind of walk you through why I prefer townhomes instead of single family homes, at least in this area based on this rent. Now, to back up, whenever I underwrite properties, I always need two numbers right away. I need the rental numbers on the payment standards, which are typically released by the housing authority. And then I also need to know what is the market rent, right? Because you need to understand what is the reasonable rent in this area. So when you have that position, right? Well, let's go over here. Let's put in this address, 10821 Farmville Road. What? I don't know, 27614. I'm going to affordablehousing.com, go to the owner section, go to the rental estimate, plug in the address, plug in the bedroom count, and let's see what it says over here for a 3-bedroom. Now, of course, this is lumped in with single family homes. It's lumped in with 3-bedroom apartments potentially, but that doesn't mean that you don't have at least a rough range, right? So we can underwrite with what the estimates gives us, and also with what 1731. Cool. So it's a little bit higher than yesterday by about $50. Yesterday was 1680. Remember that number? This is 1731. Now, for my housing authority payment standards, you can look up Raleigh Housing Authority by county or city. Usually it's kind of differentiated by that way. And you can kind of see in 27614, you're going to see the rental for a 3-bedroom, the rent ceiling is 2262. Okay, at 2262, that typically includes utilities, and this is 2025, so it probably went up a little bit. And a 4-bedroom is 2848. Now, for this property, could I add an additional unit? Not readily, because I don't see a garage. Sometimes you have a garage, it's easy to just turn that into an ADU, additional bedroom there. Not seeing that here. Okay, if I'm not seeing that here, what do I do? Okay, if I don't see that here, then my goal is to figure out, all right, I have to analyze this deal as is, as a 3-bedroom, right? So in that scenario, I don't even have the flexibility like I did yesterday, where I was able to add in a bedroom, because I thought, hey, maybe I can take this section right here, take the line in that room, and maybe turn that really, really oversized bedroom into 2 additional bedrooms, which might be good, especially if you have like multiple kids and you want each of them to have their own bedrooms. That's a good way to approach it, but you don't have that here. So I'm going to assume I'm going to underwrite this property that is on the market for $325,000. Let's kind of show you what it is. And this property at 10821, I mean, on a relative basis, it's pretty much turnkey. Could I possibly replace the carpet? Yeah. Does it look like it needs a paint job? I don't think so, but ideally, I would like to replace the carpet. I mean, that looks pretty dirty. It looks black right there. And I don't want to see a black looking carpet right there, right? I mean, I'm just going to replace the LVP. That's just my personal preference. I don't want to do that later, but hey, at least let's do something here. So at 1405 square feet, let's go to my rehab calculator, and let's go to here. So because it's a single family home, I always assume that there's some repairs that are needed at $1,500, just in case there's some patchwork that's needed, reinforcement, etc. I always find some issues with the roof that could use a little bit of love. Then for my painting, I'm gonna just say, hey, maybe I need to paint like 250 square feet of the property, just touch up paint or something like that, right? Just to freshen it up. For my flooring, I'm gonna assume that I need to replace about 1,000 square feet of flooring at $8 a square foot. Again, you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io, go to the Get Deal Analysis tool, and that's the fastest way for you to copy the spreadsheet. I'm not trying to sell you anything. No upsell or none of that stuff. It's just that's the fastest way to get a copy, especially without having to DM me. Now, when I put this property up here at $325,000, I got all these line items for possible repairs. What else do I want to do in here? It's 2.5 baths. So what I'd like to do is always replace my toilets with high pressure assisted flush toilets. These are toilets that have a very powerful flush, they don't clog. And the reason I do that is because I've never had a clogged toilet call because of my other properties that have these toilets. And honestly, I don't ever want to spend my time answering a clogged toilet call. Drains your time and drains your energy. It's just not worth it. So just get it done up front, get it out of the way so you never have to go back. I think these are some of your biggest issues that might pop up later. Then I'm going to add in a HVAC cage for the property. And this allows me to figure out, hey, now I reduce the risk of my HVAC ever getting stolen for some random reason. So that works out really well. All right. So, no, don't come here. Yeah. You want to put it on? No, you're not wearing a shirt. You can't come on. No, you can't come on. Yeah, you got plenty of clothes on. Okay. At $15,000 of my rehab, what is my rent? If I underwrite this property at $1,780, that's my bottom tier, right? Then I got my taxes and my insurance. Hi. And then I got $237 for my taxes, $237. And I got $89 for my insurance equals 89. All right. I'll multiply that by 1.2 because I see that I got a 20% premium on my insurance because I'm assuming that $89 earlier, that was assuming it's going to be used as a primary residence property. If I'm using it as investment property, typically there is a higher risk. So I'm just doing a quick general rule of thumb at 20% premium, and it allows me to be more conservative. Now, yesterday when I was underwriting a townhome, I had 5% as my maintenance because I knew that my HOA is going to cover my roof, siding, etc., certain repairs that are common to the property. So now I had to bump this up to at least 10% at the very minimum for my maintenance because guess what? Something always breaks. I mean, I've seen gurus out there that tell you like, hey, I'm buying turnkey properties. There are no expenses. So irresponsible. Please don't trust people that are out there teaching you that, where they're saying, oh, my cash flow is my rent minus my debt service. So far from the truth. You're making this up. I mean, especially if you're a buy and hold investor, you know you're gonna have to replace something at some point, right? Something always breaks. I don't know if you've ever owned a home before, but something always breaks. Something always needs to get repaired. So it's irresponsible of you to underestimate your expenses and overestimate your profitability because you're pretending these expenses don't exist. No, you gotta put aside money every single month for it. All right, so now I got $19 from my HOA and B34. My property management expenses, I'm keeping at 10%. Again, you can self-manage your property, but if you don't put in expenses for property management, then you have bought yourself a job because you never incorporate enough margin for yourself should you want to do this with a property manager, right? I think a lot of people get into real estate because they want passive income. This is a very, very important reason for what you need to do, okay? All right, 5% for vacancy expenses. I got 25% down right here in F19. And then my down payment is going to be B4 times my down payment percentage of 25%. So that equals $81,250. I got $8,125 for my closing costs at 2.5%. And then I got my renovations at about roughly 15 grand based on what I estimated earlier with all my flooring updates. And that's a pretty heavy rehab. I mean, but it's also, hey, that can add up really fast. Right now, I'm underwriting was 25% down, 6.5% interest rate. So that single family home as a 3-bedroom, because it's costing you an extra 100 grand compared to what we were looking at yesterday, you're gonna be way more negative in cash flow. Negative 568 right now. If even though this little pocket has 1730, 1780. I gave it extra $100 actually. Should have been 1730, but I'll do 1780 for now, just to show you that it's still well negative. Minus 569. You're losing $569 a month. Thank you. And then let's say I go up to 2050, right? Let's say I increase a little bit because it's a single family home. Maybe I can find better comps out there. It's more renovated once I renovate it. Even at that situation, you're still at minus 4.2% cash on cash return. So let's do this, right? Let's say at 2050, what do I need to buy this property for? Changing my price in B4 so that I can get in E9 a cash and cash return of caught 8%. If I go to 190 grand, do I get closer like I did yesterday? No, I actually have to buy this for lower because my expenses are higher. 170 grand, 165, right? This gets me a 7.8%. So, hey, I'm not saying 8% is a magical number, but at least now you know what is the number for you to figure out if this is a deal for you, right? You have your own criteria. Look, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. I'm just simply showing you how to adjust the levers up and down to figure out what is the deal for you, quote unquote. Now, what I would love for you to see is, well, determine your portfolio strategy. Maybe some people just want to buy in Southern California. You buy $1 million home and you're just trying to break even. Because in Southern California, it goes up by about 5% every single year. That's like $50,000. So they're like, who cares about a couple $100 of cash flow a month, right? Who cares? Who cares? So this is why you got to figure out whether or not what's the deal for you. All right? Okay. So at 165 grand, that's the only way, even with 2050 in rent, 393 a month, that's a 7.8% return. But I was going to have to buy this property for 165 grand, which, I mean, is it realistic? Probably not, right? They're listing for 325. But I mean, it doesn't stop from making an offer, right? But hey, is it worth your time, right? That's the decision that you have to make to decide, hey, is this worth my time to make that offer, even though it's so far off? Because you still have to write it up. Well, another situation is going to be, well, what if I overestimate my renovation? Maybe I divide it by 3. Well, now all of a sudden, I can afford to pay 175 grand instead of 165 grand because my renovation budget was chopped into divided by 3. That's like 66% less, right? I mean, that's a different way for you to adjust up and down the numbers to figure out what's the deal for you. Because now all of a sudden you might, oh no, I had a contractor walk the property. He said I overestimated rehab. They're like, really everything looks great. Nothing really needs to get done. Like $5,000 more than enough for you to get it rent ready. Okay, and that's an everything. Just update your numbers. Same thing. It was the other way. If you're all of a sudden you walk in there and they're like, hey, dude, I saw something with the piping, and all your entire plumbing needs to get redone because they're behind code, or all these did the plumbing a certain way that doesn't make sense anymore, and now you doubled. Well, now all of a sudden you got to go the opposite way, right? For you get 8% return, you might have to go 155 or 150 even. But that's how you take emotions out of the evaluation process. You adjust it up and downwards so that you can figure out what is the deal for you without getting too invested in emotions, right? Get that inspection, find out what your budget is for renovation, and then adjust the levers accordingly. That's all I'm trying to do here, and sharing with you on how to adjust the levers up and down to determine what's the deal for you. Or maybe, hey, all of a sudden you figure out, hey, I think I can actually get $2,300 in rent here because it's such a great area and it's actually in high demand, and all those estimates were wrong after I talked to a property management company. Well, now all of a sudden you might be at 178 grand, right? See what happened to the numbers? Kept going up as you get more information, right? And then you go, now instead of multiplying with 2, now all of a sudden you keep going up. Now you might be at 188 grand, right? Because now you go back to your old renovation because you didn't have to get doubled. And this is how you quickly realize, how do you adjust up and downwards numbers. All right, that's the most important part. That's the most important part of this exercise that I want you all to learn from, because most people just don't even understand the very basic skill of learning how to analyze a deal. All right, I hope you all have an amazing day. Hope you all have spend some quality time with your family and friends today, because that's what life is all about. All right, I'll see you.